The mic wasn't on. So we're just going to redo this one more time. Rabbi Kedar, B'nai Jehoshua Beth Elohim, family's going to come in, Kriya, Masonic Lodge, military honors at the cemetery. Yes. Please rise. Please be seated. At this time, Rabbi Kedar is going to approach the family to perform the ancient ceremony of Kriya. If I can kindly ask the people in the first row to please rise. As the family is seated, we welcome the gentleman from the Masonic Lodge 437 for the rites.
From time immemorial, it has been the custom among the fraternity of ancient, free, and accepted Masons, at the request of a brother or his family, to perform the last rites with the usual ceremonies of the craft. Conforming to this usage, we have assembled in the character of Freemasons to offer to the memory of our brother this tribute of affection. Brethren, we mourn today the loss of a brother whose spirit has been summoned to the land where our fathers have gone before us. Again, we behold the narrow house for all the living. Stones and leathered monuments symbolize the love of surviving friends and convey the silent admonition: seek ye the narrow path and the straight gate that lead unto eternal life. Again, we are called upon to consider the uncertainty of human life, the absolute certainty of death, and the vanity of earthly ambitions. The cradle and the coffin stand side by side, and it is a melancholy truth that as soon as we begin to live, that moment also we begin to die. We go on from design to design and hope to hope, and lay out plans for the employment of many years. The messenger of death comes when least expected. What are all the externals of human dignity, the power of wealth, the charms of beauty, when nature has been paid its just debt? In the grave, all fallacies are detected. All ranks are leveled. All distinctions are done away with. Here, the scepter of the prince and the staff of the beggar lie side by side. May we accord to his memory the commendation of having lived a useful and exemplary life and as a just and upright mason. And now, my brethren, let us see to it and so regulate our lives by the plumb line of justice, ever squaring our actions by the square of virtue, that when the grand warden of heaven shall call us, we may be found ready. Let us circumvent assiduously the noble tenets of our profession, brotherly love, relief, and truth. From the square, learn morality. From the level, equality of, and from the plumb, rectitude of life. With the trowel, spread liberally the cement of brotherly love. Circumscribed by the compasses, let us ponder well our words and actions. And let us all, the energies of our minds and the affections of our soul, be employed in thy attainment of thy supreme Grand Master's approbation. Then, when our disillusion draws nigh, with joy shall we obey the summons of the Grand Warden of Heaven and go from our labors on earth to eternal refreshment in the paradise of God, where, by the benefit of the past of a pure and blameless life and the unshaken confidence in the merit of the tribe of Judah, shall we gain ready admission into the celestial lodge, where the supreme architect of the universe presides. There, placed at his right hand, he will be pleased to pronounce us just and upright masons. The lambskin, or white leather apron, was the first gift of Freemasonry to our departed brother. It is an emblem of innocence and the badge of a Mason. Our brother is wearing his, the one that was given to him at the time of his raising to the sublime degree of Master Mason. We are here reminded of the universal dominion of death. The arm of friendship cannot interpose to prevent his coming. The wealth of the world cannot buy exemption, nor will the innocence of youth or the charms of beauty change his purpose. This evergreen is an emblem of an enduring faith in the immortality of the soul. By it we are reminded that we have a life within us that shall survive the grave and which can never die. Through our belief in the mercy of God, we may confidently hope that our souls will bloom in eternal spring. Brethren, prepare to give the funeral honors. We consign his body to the earth. We cherish his memory here. We commend his spirit to God. I will now read the Masonic roll of Brother Lester Marvin Edelson. Masonic record of Brother Lester Marvin Edelson. Brother Lester Marvin Edelson was born on January 18, 1933 in Chicago, Illinois. He petitioned Chicago Lodge number 437 for the degrees in Masonry. Was initiated as an entered apprentice on May 4, 1978, passed to the degree of Fellowcraft on May 18, 1978, and was raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason on July 20, 1978. Brother Edelson was a Master Mason for 46 years, 4 months, and 15 days. He laid down his working tools on October 4, 2024, having lived 91 years, 9 months, and 17 days. Thus, under the record of a just and upright Mason, may his soul rest in peace. The passing of a brother from the cares and troubles of this transitory existence has removed another link from the fraternal chain that binds us together. May we who survive him be more strongly bound in the ties of union and friendship and in the interchange of kind and friendly acts with those of his immediate relatives and friends who are most heart-stricken at the loss we have all sustained. We sincerely, deeply, and most affectionately sympathize. He who tempers the wind to the shorn lamb, look with infinite compassion upon the bereaved and sorrowing in this hour of their disillusion. Our Heavenly Father will fold the arms of his love and protection around those who put their trust in him. Soft and safe be the earthly bed of our brother. Bright and glorious be his rising from it. Fragrant be the acacia sprig which shall flourish there. May the earliest buds of spring unfold their beauties over his resting place. In the bright morning of the world's resurrection, may his soul spring into newness of life and expand into immortal beauty in realms beyond the sky. Until then, dear friend and brother, until then, farewell. Brethren, you will give the final honors and retire.
We continue with the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We have two speakers, Howard, who is a nephew and Lister's godson, and Mike, on behalf of Marshall, who I believe is in Florida, unable to get here, will speak second. So, Howard.
Thank you, Rabbi. The last time I saw Lester was a week before he died. Neil and I surprised him at his new apartment with some of his favorite foods: smoked fish, herring, liverwurst, and pumpernickel bread. We made him a liverwurst sandwich, which he ate. Neil asked him, "Uncle, how do you like the sandwich?" And that liverwurst, flavorless in typical Lester fashion. That was also a backhanded way of saying thank you. We talked, we told stories for the rest of the day. His caretaker, Heather, who's here, thank you, kept encouraging Neil and I to tell stories. So Neil and I did, and we shared photos. And as we did, we saw Lester smile. At one point through these stories, Lester abruptly, I know that doesn't sound like Lester, Lester abruptly said, "Howard, how you coming and writing my eulogy?" And he never really asked me to write one. We talked about it, but it still caught me off guard. But I think Lester knew the end was near. And he wanted to know that his story was going to be written. So, Lester, the year was 1933. Little perspective, FDR became president, Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, FM radio was invented, the original movie of King Kong premiered, and on January 18th, Lester Marvin Edelson was born to Herman and Ann. Lester was named after his grandfathers, Louis Edelson and Morris Goblat, both who immigrated with their wives, Lottie and Dora, in the late 1800s. They immigrated from Russia to avoid the hard times, to come to America to pursue the American dream. Louis was a tailor. Morris sold mineral water. I think that was Perrier. Lester's father, Herman, was a World War I veteran. He owned an auto shop and was a checker cab driver after the war. Together with his wife, Ann, they raised 3 kids on the west side of Chicago near Humboldt Park in the shadows of the Great Depression and World War II. The reason I know all this is because Lester and I worked on our family tree for over a decade. And during that time, Lester would tell me family stories as far back as he could remember. Lester was a walking encyclopedia of family information, and he had a story on every one. As the last person of the family, or as the last person of his family's blood generation, it was very important to him that our family's history was being documented so it could be shared and passed on. In fact, one day Neil called me, my brother, said, "Howard, Lester wants me to take him to the cemetery." I'm like, "For what?" Neil said, "He wants me to go take pictures of all the headstones of our family and make sure that someone knew where everyone was buried." That was Lester. As we worked on this family tree over the years, I listened to all of his stories, and 3 common themes emerged that I believe was the essence, the core of Lester, his values, and who he was. 1, being a Jew. 2, traditions. And 3, family. And I think growing up in that small Humboldt Park apartment during the Depression, living through Hitler's atrocities, losing his father early at the age of 20, only intensified these values in Lester. They were the lenses that Lester viewed life through. It was what made him happy. It's what made him sad and sometimes angry. So let me just tell a few thoughts of being Jewish, traditions, and family through Lester's lens. Being a Jew. Lester treasured his Jewish heritage, his culture, and the rituals. He went to synagogue all the time, especially for the high holidays. He loved listening to the rabbi's sermons. He loved the melodies of the prayers. And he loved celebrating the Jewish holidays, breaking the fast and Passover. So perhaps it's no coincidence that Lester died during the Rosh Hashanah holiday. Traditions. Like his father, Lester was proud to be a veteran, and he was also a member of the one of the oldest groups. You saw them, the Freemasons. He was proud to be a Freemason. He loved those traditions, family gatherings, birthdays, graduations, bar mitzvahs, weddings. He loved going to his favorite restaurant and telling you about it. You've never been to such a place. I want to take you, what Lester would say. One of his favorite places was going to the Russian steam room, also known as the Schwitz. Family. What Lester was most proud of and was most important to him was family and being a father. He loved his big brother, Lowell, and his baby sister, Dorothy, whose 90th heavenly birthday is next week. I remember Lester telling stories about the three of them growing up in the Depression, how everything was scarce, and how they had to share everything. How they watched over each other as they grew up in the neighborhood. And as adults, they watched their families grow. Lester was heartbroken when his brother and sister died too young. Lester always talked about his three children, Herman, Jeff, and Jackie. And in his eyes, these three could do no wrong. He loved you so much. And whenever we talked, most of the conversation was, Herman did this, Jackie did that. Just felling over you guys. He was devastated at Jeff's passing in 2017. Lester's grandchildren always brought a smile to his face whenever they came to visit. Lester, my uncle, godfather, and friend, we became very close after both my parents died. Having lost his father when he was young, Lester knew how difficult it was to not have a parent. Lester kept watch over my brother, Neil, sister Tammy, and I over the years. He made sure that we were okay, that we stayed connected to the family. He was always there for us. So some of my fondest and favorite memories and stories of Lester are the following. I worked in Washington, D.C. for a while, and Lester came to visit. We took a tour. I took him on a tour of the White House and to the U.S. Capitol. It was recess in the U.S. House, so I took him to the floor. I said, Uncle, go sit in the speaker's chair, which he did. I took a picture of him, but what we didn't know is that you weren't allowed to take pictures on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. I clicked the camera, the light bulb flashed, Lester was smiling, and all of a sudden, from the distance, the sergeant of arms yelled, "Hey, you can't take pictures on the floor of the house." And Lester, from that smile sitting in the speaker's chair, looked at me. His face was white as a ghost. The expression was, "What the F do we do?" I winked. We apologized, and we got the hell out of there. Another story, I was on a business trip in Tucson. Lester came to visit. We decided to go to the spa to get some massages and take in a good steam. So we were sitting in the waiting room in our bathrobes, yip-yapping, and the door opens, and guess who walks in? Vince Vaughn, that movie actor from Chicago. And Lester and I look at each other like, holy. And Vince, in his bathrobe, sat down, and we started to kibitz. And anyways, we went on, did our massages, went to dinner, and talked about Vince Vaughn, his movies, and his comedy the rest of the day. Fiddler on the Roof. Lester loved Fiddler on the Roof. One year, we met, and I took him to the play. He loved those songs. Tradition. If I Were a Rich Man. And he loved that lead character, Tevye. He talked so much about it that night, the next day, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after, that I just nicknamed him the Fiddler. I was on a trip to Israel one year, and I saw in the gift shop a little caricature, the house and the little Fiddler on the Roof. And I schlepped that thing back from Israel to give it to the Fiddler. My uncle always sent me birthday cards, and I used to always love the little joke and jest in there, but most of all, I would love the way he finished the card. He signed it, the Fiddler. Your godfather. Love, Uncle. My father once told the story of him and Lester being in Hebrew school. It was a second-story classroom. Lester was in there, and Lester uncharacteristically got in trouble. The rabbi in front of everybody said, "Lester, I'm going to tell your parents." Lester said, "No, you can't. I'm going to tell your parents." Lester slowly moved to the open window on the second floor, turned to the rabbi and said, "If you tell my parents, or if you promise that you won't tell my parents, I'm going to jump out of the window." The rabbi said, "I'm telling your parents." And guess what? Lester jumped out of the second floor window. But what the rabbi didn't know was that there was worker scaffolding right under the window. Lester knew that. Reportedly, Lester gave the teacher a heart attack after that. So it's hard to explain or understand what the Russian steam room is, or the schwitz. It's an experience that unless you've been there, you don't know. Growing up, it became a weekly family tradition when we were young. Lester loved going to the schwitz. He started going with his father way back, and he kept that family tradition going with my father, Lester, and all of the cousins. We'd go to the schwitz on a weekly basis. We'd have a steam. We'd go and eat and talk and have a good time. The steam room was Lester's second temple. He loved that place. It rejuvenated him, and it was another opportunity for him to tell stories. One year, Lester took rejuvenation to a new level. Lester, Herman, Neil, and I went to the Schwitz. We had a steam. We came up to the dressing area. Lester decided he was going to have a heart attack, and did. EMS was called, and you can only imagine the EMS's faces who have never been to a Schwitz, seeing a bunch of guys with towels around their waist going, what the hell is this place? And what are we doing? And there's Lester holding his chest, nude. Herman got dressed very fast, and it was a picture to see Lester being ushered out, nude, in a gurney. Herman hurrying up behind. But that didn't stop Lester after his heart attack from going to the Schwitz. He talked to the doctor and asked, when can I go back? He called Neil, who's also a doctor. Do you think I can go back? And he did. In fact, in 2019, Lester was ecstatic. He was ecstatic to go to the Schwitz in an inaugural event to take his great nephews, Landon, Justin, Elliot, my son, or Max, my son Elliot, to the Schwitz. And of course, when we were in the steam room, Lester sat next to Elliot and told him stories. Lester and his stories. And he told Elliot about how he went to the steam room when he was a little boy with his father. After we got out of the steam room and we were having drinks and eating, Lester, Elliot told me, taught him how to make the perfect rejuvenating drink. Half red soda, half club soda. You drink it, and he would say, "Oi, you've never had such a thing." One thing's for sure, there are no shortages of Lester's stories. I'm sure all of you may have one. Anyone who knew Lester knows not only could he tell a good story, but he had the gift to gab. That Lester smile, that laugh, those blue eyes, those were the exclamation mark after any story he told. Lester had a strong opinion about everything. And he was never shy to share it with you, even if you didn't agree with him or ask for it. So I think Lester's gift to us was that Lester helped make stories. Lester made memories to tell stories. And then he told stories to preserve memories. Lester's hope and wish was to make sure that our family legacy lives on with his kids, his nephews, his nieces, his grandkids, his great-grandkids, and his grandnephews and nieces. Lester was one of a kind. Lester is now in heaven with all of his friends and all of his family, who he missed so much over the years. Now, they will have an eternity to listen to all of Lester's stories up there. There's a Jewish saying to give condolences. It goes, "May their memory be a blessing." For me, thinking about Lester, I can say his memory is a blessing. Rest in peace, Uncle. I love you. Thank you.
That was beautiful. I'm sure I should have gone first. May need you to read this because I can't see a thing now. Les's nephew Marshall couldn't be here. He's stuck in the hurricane. He has some words he wanted me to read for him. Today we gather to remember and honor the life of Lester Edelson. Uncle Les to me, a man who dedicated nearly half a century to the service and care of others. His legacy is imprinted in the nursing home he developed, the communities he nurtured, and the lives he improved through his unwavering commitment as a distinguished nursing home administrator, planner, and developer. Uncle Les's passion for care evident in his every project he undertook, from his work on the City of Evanston Medicare Committee to his leadership as the administrator of Three Oaks Nursing Home, the first in Evanston to accept Medicare patients. His vision for better care led to the development of Winston Manor, Rogers Park Manor, and DuPage Convalescence Home, places where countless individuals found comfort and support during their most vulnerable moments. He wasn't just a professional in his field, he was a pioneer, a member of the Illinois Nursing Home Administrators Association, and an advocate who shaped policies and standards to elevate the quality and care of those in need. Beyond his professional achievements, Uncle Les served his country as an Air Force veteran of the Korean War, demonstrating the same courage and commitment he carried throughout his life. Indeed, he would proudly wear his veteran's cap everywhere he went later in life. I was at the sauna, he didn't wear it there. He was also an active member of several fraternal organizations, including Chicago Lodge AF&AM 437, Valley of Chicago Scottish Rite, and Medinah Temple, where he found fellowship and shared the bonds of brotherhood. Today we celebrate a life well lived, a legacy of compassion, and the memories we will always cherish. Uncle Les's spirit lives through the communities he built, the family he loved, and the lives he touched. Though we feel the weight of his absence, we find comfort knowing his contributions will continue to make a difference for years to come. On a very personal note, thank you, Uncle Les, for being much more than an uncle to me. I saw you as a trusted personal advisor, confidant, and friend. I will so miss the many conversations we had later in life where we'd stroll down memory lane, laughing over some good but mostly bad jokes, arguing over the best Italian beef sandwich and hot dogs in the city, as well as where you could get the best Chinese food. You're always telling me regarding my selections, "Are you nuts?" Delighting over our collective memories of the family trips and adventures we took together and all those so-called shortcut old roads that were off the map. Your sense of humor was so appreciated. You always brought cheer and laughter at family gatherings. Furthermore, you taught me about Jewish history. Thanks to you, I understand the consequences of the difference in age between the Chinese history being 5,000 years old and the Italian being 2,300 years old. For 2,700 years, Jews didn't have a choice of what they could eat on Sundays. Rest in peace, Uncle Les. Your work here is done, but your legacy endures, and you will be greatly missed.
You did him right. He would have loved that. That's exactly, I'm sure, what he imagined. Leah asked me to read this. And before I do, I just want to name out loud the family who are mourning right now. Herman and Jodie and Jackie and Jeffrey, may his memory be for a blessing. I can't believe it's been 7 years. and Michael and Anna and Greg and Danny, and Leah, Stephen, Zackary, Ashley, Travis, and 7 great-grandchildren. And the sound of children should always be treasured. And the nephews and the nieces. Sandra, you created a tribe along with Lester. Leah says, I wrote a eulogy. I don't know if I want to speak it, but here it is. So here I go for you. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I want to thank you all for being here today to celebrate the life of my grandfather, my papa. It's difficult to find the right words to express what he meant to me, but I'll try my best. Papa was one of the most strong-willed people I've ever known. It was his way or the highway. He was never afraid to let people know where he stood. He was unapologetically himself, someone who upheld his boundaries with confidence. What always amazed me was how content he was with who he was. He didn't care what anyone thought about him because deep down, he knew himself better than anyone could. One of the greatest life lessons Papa taught me was the importance of being true to yourself. He wasn't concerned with pleasing others or fitting in. He was simply who he was. There was something incredibly powerful about that, something we can all learn from. And although he had this tough, no-nonsense exterior, he was someone who enjoyed the little things in life. I'll never forget how much he loved his blueberry pie a la mode for dinner. It was such a simple pleasure, but it brought him joy, and that's what mattered. I have this memory of Papa telling me he urgently needed to go grocery shopping. I thought we were in for a serious shopping trip, so I was more than happy to take him. But when we got there, the first thing he grabbed was Powerade and, of all things, rainbow unicorn ice cream. I still laugh about that. This grumpy, stubborn man with his bright pastel ice cream. That was my Papa for you. Just when you thought you knew what to expect, he'd throw the oddball twist like a rainbow unicorn ice cream that would make you smile and remind you that there is always more to him than meet the eye. And speaking of surprises, I remember one day when I was a kid, Papa came home with 3 bright pink boxes. I had no idea what was inside, but when I opened them, it felt like an unlimited supply of Barbies and Bratz dolls, with all clothing and accessories you can imagine. It was overwhelmingly in the best possible way, and I just remember feeling like, wow, this is love. I was so young, but even then, Papa had a way of making me feel on top of the world. He called me his heart, and I can honestly say that I love that every day. It's my hope that everyone has a chance to feel that kind of love in their lives, the kind of love that Papa showed me. Papa was one of a kind. He lived on his own terms. He never apologized for it. He taught me to stay true to himself, to enjoy the little things, and to give love in my own unique way. He wasn't perfect, but none of us are. Sometimes grumpy. He was perfect to me. So we say goodbye to him today. I want to celebrate the man who was strong, stubborn, unapologetic, but also soft-hearted, caring, and full of little surprises, like rainbow unicorn ice cream and uncontrollable laughter. Thank you, Papa. You will always be in my heart. A lot has been said, and so I'm going to skip a few of the things like stubborn opinions, traditional, old school, specific visions of women in their place. But even as I skip all those things, and I know and you know that he was complicated, just as you expressed so beautifully, all of you, he truly did love you. and you never left him. Living nearby, upstairs, downstairs, in very small quarters, you were always together, taking care of each other, sometimes screaming, sometimes fighting, but never walking away. Never walking away. And I have to say that, from what you both have said, was part of his legacy. It's family. For better or for worse, it's family. As you said, he died on the holiday during the 10 days of repentance. And it is actually very traditional in funerals to privately, by the grave, I say it every time, to offer a prayer of forgiveness, to imagine him saying, "Hey, I'm sorry," and you saying, "It's okay." And imagine you saying to him, "I'm sorry," and him saying, "Never mind." Because it's at this moment that our heart is cracked wide open, and it is at this particular moment that the gates are open for forgiveness and repentance. You told me what he taught you. Know where you come from. Know who you are, because he knew who he was. Be loyal to family. Be loyal to family. Never give in on your dignity. Have a sense of pride, a sense of self. Be better than I was. I think all parents want that. Be better. And you both knew that his light was dimming. You just knew it, like he seemed to have known it. And Herman, your last conversation was an ordinary conversation. And Jackie, your last conversation for the two of you was an ordinary conversation. But as Leah taught you all when you were young, when she was a little girl, you ended it by saying, "Okay, I love you," even if there was a tone in the voice. And he left letters. In fact, he left a eulogy for me to read, which I won't do, but I will excerpt. Sorry. Give the rabbi a mic and I get control. And he left you letters. Like you knew exactly what he thought and what he felt. And he was repentant. And in his letters, he said, "These are the things I want to take with me. This suit in this closet, these socks in this drawer, my talit, my talis, the American flag, Mason's hat, and a blanket to keep me warm, because you know how I'm always cold." He wrote, "I loved my mother and father. They gave me life and they kept me alive." That needs to be said right now. He had such mourning for the loss of his brother, sister. He said, "Look out for one another." That's a quote. You hear? Look out for one another. And he said, "You don't think you need advice. In fact, you often fought against the advice, whether you liked it or not. He told you what he wanted you to know. But he said, we all need advice." I think at that moment about himself. And he said, "You know how I felt, even though I didn't always tell you, I showed it." Jackie, he wrote, "I love you so much." Quote, "As much as a father can, and you will always be my little girl." And Herman, he didn't finish his letter to you because, as was your way, you guys didn't necessarily say what needed to be said because you knew what needed to be said. You just knew. and you know now. And he ended, may God bless you, not us blessing him. He ended the letter saying, may God bless you and give you a sweet, healthy life. I love you. And he said, I am so sorry to those who I have offended. And he added, I'm not sure I really offended anybody. And then he said, in my life, quote, I ask for forgiveness. And then he said, may God watch over all of you and bless you all. In this way, even in his death, he's a powerful teacher. You want love in your life? Then love. You want to be forgiven? Then forgive. You want to be remembered for a blessing? Then bless those around you. And a little more kindness is always a really good idea. May his memory be for a blessing, to which we all say, please rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Baromim Hamatzeh Menucha Nachona Tachat Kanfei Shechina, Him Tohorim Kiddushim, Kazor Harakia Masirim Et Nishmat Lester Sha'alach L'olamo, Baal Rachamim Yiteser Batzeter Kanafav L'olamim, V'yitzor B'tzor Chaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Unachlatov Yanuch B'Shalom L'Mishkavov and Omar, Amen, which means, compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Lester. He has entered eternity. O God of mercy, may he find refuge in your eternal presence. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, as we all say.
Ladies and gentlemen, the interment service will continue at West Lawn Cemetery, located at 7801 West Montrose in Norwich. The family will be returning to the Ellison, which is at 8975 West Gulf Road in Niles. They'll be together until 9 p.m. this evening. Memorial contributions to the American Diabetes Association, the American Cancer Society, or Congregation B'nai Jehoshua Beth Elohim would be appreciated. That information is on the service folder. For those of you who are joining us online, that information you'll find at the funeral home's website. For those of you who will be driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery, the procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please obtain an orange safety funeral sticker to place on the right-hand side of your windshield. Have your bright lights and hazard lights on at all times. For additional measures of safety, we will be providing a car in the back of the procession to hopefully keep other cars from entering the procession. Please use your horn liberally as you're going through the intersections. Please do not speak or text on your cellular phone while driving to the cemetery. Once we arrive at West Lawn, the gentlemen or the ladies, the honor guard from the United States Armed Forces will be there. We'll do military honors and then continue with the religious service and burial. At this time, I call upon his grandchildren to serve as pallbearers, as I ask everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket of Lester M. Edelson from the chapel, along with his family and Rabbi Kedar. Then you may return to your cars.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the must bide. But call me back when summer's in the meadow, or when the fall is hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be a in sunshine or in shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so. And when ye come and all the flowers are dying, if I am dead, as dead I well may be, he'll come and find the place where I am lying, and he'll say, sleep in